Peace. Good morning to all starships in the Alpha, Beta, Gamma, and Delta quadrants. This is your host, Josh Pritchett, and this show is New Frontiers, an exploration of Star Trek, Strange New Worlds. And I am, of course, joined today by my eternal partner in crime, Chris Pabon.
Good morning, Josh. Buenos días a todos nuestros amables oyentes que quieren saber más de viajes a las estrellas, mundos extraños. Guten Morgen. Josh, how are you this morning?
I'm awake. I'm doing great today. It's a wonderful cloudy Sunday morning. Not too hot. I'm ready to go. And having a good weekend so far. So how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing fine, and wish to tell all of our viewers to have a happy 4th of July. Be safe with those fireworks.
Yes. Especially if you're in my neighborhood. Thank you very much. Yes. I cannot afford to have any more trees near my apartment burned down. I'd rather that didn't happen again. Okay. It's pretty scary, not fun. Okay.
The world needs more people who watch Star Trek and more trees.
Yes, both. Definitely both. So if you are ready, my good friend, we shall hit it and get into this week's episode 109er, All That Wander. So this week's episode, the crew opens with a celebration in the main area where to commemorate the cadets who completed or are about to complete their training missions aboard the Enterprise. And of course, Cadet Uhura is among them. And they are being recognized. And also an ensign is promoted to lieutenant, which is a little bit of foreshadowing here, folks. Then Spock alerts Pike and Una that there has been a distress call from a sister starship, a Saber class vessel, which is basically a scaled down version of the Constitution class. It's got the same layout. It's just the Constitution has a bigger frame. So they head to this planet and beam down, and they find that the ship has crashed. And basically it's a planet. It's an ice planet, a lot of snow and things. And they go aboard the ship, and they find a strange alien that they have not encountered. And Uhura is trying to purse together the alien's language. But the alien is actually with a small human female, a little girl, basically. And apparently the girl and the alien are friends, and he is not responsible for the destruction of the ship. We find out that it seems that the crew of the ship has all been killed, and they're trying to figure out why. Chris?
So what makes Valero Beta 5, the planet they're on, unique is because of the ionic atmosphere, you can't beam down. So they had to take shuttles, and then because, as Hammer says at one point, it reminds me of Andoria, it's very frigid. They can't land, and because of topographical terrain, they couldn't land in their two shuttles they have to take near the ship, so they have to walk over there. And in walking over there, they see the remains of what happened to the former crew. So, and it doesn't take Lahan much to realize something has gone very wrong, and they play the audio. Uhura manages to fix the communications badge of the captain, who is one of the remains that they find. And in her last communication, she reveals that the fate of the ship, which was that they were charting non-Federation space, and they picked up 3 people who were stranded on a planet. What they didn't realize is that one of them had been infected. It was an Orion, an unknown species, and a girl. and the Orion had been infected with Gorn eggs. And the Orion didn't tell anyone but knew this. And so he tried to preempt his fate by blowing himself up with a plasma grenade. Unfortunately, the place he chose was engineering, which caused the ship to go down in the first place. And at this point, it is that Pike tells everyone that, they got to come together, because he quickly realizes what was going to be just like a quick trip for the last mission of the ensigns who are rotating off, as he declared it, like, we're going to put him in the station wagon, has turned quite deadly. And they find, as you said, the the girl Oriana, with her protector, and they take them both to sick bay, and Mabenga looks them over, and they seem to be fine. But again, Laan knows a lot better, and so she starts interrogating Oriana about what she knew or didn't know, and this sets off some type of paternal reaction in Mabenga, which is very interesting, because I think we're going to see more of this, and I want to talk about it in the good, the bad, and the Gorn. Mabenga says, stop harassing my daughter. And of course, she's not the daughter. And Laan realizes maybe she's pushing it too far, and she backs away. Meanwhile, Hemmer is working in engineering with Uhura, and there's a little bit of talk about how this is Uhura's rotation off the ship, and she still doesn't really know if she wants to be with Starfleet or not. And Hemmer points out to her, well, I think your problem is that, you don't want to develop bonds with people, because that way it'll hurt less when you have to leave them or they leave you. And he is slowly but surely managing to power up the rest of the ship. And meanwhile, they have a new recently promoted Lieutenant Duke, who is on the ship, and he's also participating in repairing it, and he manages to incur some burns. And you see a moment of levity between Spock and Nurse Chapel, who's also among the people sent there. And they talk about emotions, and Spock reveals, well, yeah, it's true, I have really intense emotions, but the teaching of Surak manages to help me keep them in control. And so there's different parts of the crew and different parts of the ship trying to enact repairs, and it would seem that the Gorn threat may be not present, but things are about to change quite quickly, because in sickbay, the companion alien to the girl Oriana begins to exhibit some convulsions and seems to be ill, and Cadet Chia and Chapel are in sickbay, and they don't quite know what's going on, because remember, Mabenga scanned both of them and they seem to be fine. And he starts convulsing more and more, and we have what I would call our alien scene, where he collapses on the floor, and out of him emerges not one, not two, not three, but 4 baby Gorn. And we see that they are quite lethal as soon as they're born, because not only does one of them, the baby Gorn, kill the other one, so that now there's 3, but in the midst of screams, one of them lunges themselves at Kidachia, going for the neck. And let's just say that even though she doesn't wear a red shirt, there's no more Kidachia. But Nurse Chapel is attracted by the screams, and meanwhile, Oriana has realized all of this is happening, so she's kind of holding her mouth in horror, because he realizes what's about to happen, and she's kind of slowly moving away. And this Nurse Chapel comes in and sees a scene which is completely out of a Sam Raimi movie. It's like horror. The alien is just covered in blood. His gust is completely busted out. You see Cadet Chia briefly, her neck is torn apart, and you see things moving inside sickbay, and Nurse Chapel quickly realizes, oh no. And so she runs away to the nearest medical bed and activates an emergency medical force field, and is there hidden in horror until we see a next scene where things get even worse, if you can believe it, because Spock is administering to newly promoted Lieutenant Duke's wounds, and Pike is with them, as is with Mabenga, and Duke is right beneath a Jeffries tube, which proves out to be a very bad place to be if you have a Gorn infestation, because the Gorn jump down on his neck, and you see in horror, so biting through him, and they're dragging him away to ostensibly eat him alive. And Pike orders Spock and Mabenga to grab the legs to try to prevent him from being dragged away. So we see the baby Gorn not only quite vicious, but also quite strong at birth. And They are unsuccessful as they continue to drive him away, and you see that his eye pops out, and they're just literally eating into him as he's being dragged away. And Pike is firing his phaser rifle to try to like kill the Gorn, um, but but he can't. He's dragged off to the darkness, and you hear like Lieutenant Duke's final screams, and you can see Spock is pretty shook up about this. And at that point, Pike is like, "We have to all get together in sickbay, strengthen numbers." And then you see that Laan comes into sickbay and finds Chapel, and I love this. Chapel is completely shooken up, and Laan immediately realizes what happened. He's cold and clinical and goes to the body and says, "Okay, 4 baby Gorn burst out of him. I see 1 dead. That means there's 3 to deal with. They're just born. This is going to be the pattern of behavior." And tells Chapel, "Okay, can you scan?" And Nurse Chapel is like, for them. And Nurse Chapel's like, yeah, scan, good idea. And you see he's completely freaked out. She's completely in shock, which I love this because that's her natural reaction, is what it should be. And then Laan, quickly realizing what's going on, just gives her a phaser rifle and says, "Listen, follow me. We're going to follow that girl. You shoot at look at the roof. Anything that moves, you shoot, ask questions later." And so then they go off looking for the girl. Hemmer and Uhura, meanwhile, oblivious to everything, are in engineering. Joss, you want to take what happens next?
Yeah, so Hemmer and Uhura are in engineering. They're trying to get the engines back online so they can get the ship back up into orbit so the Enterprise can take it back to Starbase. Of course, they are besieged by the baby Gorn and have to get out of there. Hemmer is spit upon by the baby Gorn. This is going to be significant later, obviously. Before Uhura manages to get it off of him, and they get back up there, and they pull together. The crew does, and they're trying to. They figure out that they have to kill these things in order to survive. And it becomes like basically aliens, and they are going through the ship, and it finally, Spock is forced at one point to give into his emotions. He says something to the effect of, "Let the rage that is in my mind fill my heart," and he lets out a ancient Vulcan battle cry, basically, and starts attacking this panel behind which a Gorn is hiding. And at this point, basically, Spock has been, pushed to his limit. Pike has to talk him back down. Ultimately, they do manage to kill the remaining Gorn, but it comes at a price. Hemmer is in engineering by himself after having killed the last Gorn, and he says, "Okay, I think I need to go outside now." And he admits, "Yeah, that spit that the Gorn threw on me, it wasn't spit, and it was the eggs, and they are in him, and they're about to hatch." And as he goes, he imparts some final wisdom. He tells Spock, "Live long and prosper, my friend." He gives the Vulcan salute, and he imparts one final bit of wisdom to Uhura to, always open herself up to other people. And it's not a very long monologue, but it's a very powerful one, as can only be done by an actor as great as Bruce Horrick. He goes outside, and of course he can't see, but he can feel, and he says, "Just like Andoria," and he falls off a cliff. And that is, our sad goodbye to one of our favorite characters. Um, and I'm still trying to get over that, I'm afraid. Meanwhile, back on the Enterprise, they hold a service for the crew that lost their lives. And Pike is, of course, giving the eulogy. Spock suddenly walks out of the room, and he's followed by Chapel. Spock is punching the side of a panel because he is so enraged at the loss of Lieutenant Duke and of Hemmer. And he says, my mind is weak. I cannot control my emotions. And Chapel says, Spock, it's because you're human. And they share a moment, they hug. And then finally Spock pulls away, seeming to have regained most of his logic. Later, Leon goes to Pike and asks for a leave of absence to help the little girl find her family. And Uhura goes onto the bridge, and she looks at the communications panel and smiles. And of course, we know that she may have found her place, as Hemmer advised her that she would. And that's kind of where the episode ends. So I think now we will move on to the main part of our show: the good, the bad, and the Gorn. Chris, what did you think was good about this episode?
Josh, the name of the title of this episode is "All Those Who Wander," but I was left wondering how this could not be this season finale. It was so good, and at the same time, it makes me be slightly concerned. What is the actual season finale going to bring us? Because this had it all. This had horror. This had like loss of people on the ship. It felt really personal. So if you think about how a season finale should bring all of this, I think this episode did. So it's like, how is it going to be to the next level for the next and final episode? So I am not generally worried about what's going to happen in episode 10.
Chris, I'm going to drop a spoiler on you.
No spoilers. No spoilers.
No, it's not a spoiler.
No spoilers. No spoilers.
Okay, because I do know of something I think that could top this. Not saying it will.
Okay.
Just
All
could.
right.
So I have a lot of faith in the writing team at Strange New Worlds, and I'm ready for that. I think we're going to be, I think we're going to be very pleased with what they're going to give us next week. And I think we're going to be sitting here like for the next almost 9 months or 10 months, actually, waiting to find out what the heck, is going on. So of course, as I already said, Bruce Horrick's performance in the episode was amazing, but he was just consistently good in every episode that he was in. Especially last week's episode, the Elysium Kingdom, which I'm going to get back to, something I want to bring up at the end of the show. And he's just a superior actor, and I think wherever he ends up at post Strange New Worlds, I think any TV show or movie will be lucky to have him, because he does bring so much to his work, and he is a wonderful actor. And I imagine everybody had such a great time working with somebody like him. He's going to be in real demand though on the con circuit. I mean, his autograph table is just going to be swamped on that first Saturday if he comes to Shore Leave or Farpoint. So that's something to watch out for there. I enjoyed the horror elements, as you could imagine. It was very scary. You can't help but imagine or think of something like Aliens or Event Horizon, some other horror sci-fi type of thing like that. And I thought it was very well done, but I think they managed to give their own spin to it. So, okay, yeah, you can't help but feel like there's a similarity to a movie like Alien, but at the same time, they managed to make it their own thing. So that was pretty cool that they did it. I think, of course, I like the fact that, Spock found it necessary to give into emotion in this instance. I think that it does reinforce something I've been saying, that, well, Vulcans, that about emotional repression and how that's not healthy, but, Vulcans do permit themselves to feel emotions in certain situations. We know he's permitted himself to feel emotions around T'Pring, but of course uses logic, has a problem solving mechanism and a way to organize himself, which is what you should do. But to kind of hold all that in is not healthy. And I think it was good that Chapel was there for him. And even though she said she's not going to try to pursue him in a romantic way because he's with T'Pring and he clearly loves her and she respects him for that, you can't help but feel, yeah, there's something that's going to be going on there at some point. Um, I think, let's see. I can't, and of course, with Leon, her performance, and obviously she was really good too. What did you think, Chris?
Well, I have several things. One, I like the idea that's introduced of a crew rotation, because let's not forget that it's Starfleet, but it's still a service. There's multiple ships. So one thing that's always bothered me a little bit about the Trek series is that how um, the personnel seem to always stay on one ship. And so I really like the fact that here they're openly talking about cadets ending their rotation and they're going to go someplace else. Bobenga at one point talks about how he has served in another ship. So I like the idea that the crew is not stable. That they could be assigned to another ship, which is feels fresh and different and somewhat more realistic with this series than in previous ones where it was always the same people. So I like this, and I'm going to piggyback on that and talk about Hemmer's death because I think that certainly raises the stakes. Because again, something that I've seen in previous Trek series that I kind of didn't like was the fact that you knew that the main cast was always going to be safe no matter what happened to them. Yes, you had Star Trek Next Generation with Tassa Yar in season one, but you just always knew that however bad it got, like some people they were going to make it. And like, yes, and now on Strange New Worlds, we know that Pike's got to make it, Una's got to make it, but not necessarily the other cast members are going to make it. And I love the fact that they've kind of raised the stakes for everyone on the show and the show as a whole by having Hemmer die. And so I thought that really brings you in to think I gotta watch the show because I don't know when even if a character favorite like Hemmer can die, like anyone else is up for grabs. And speaking of the dynamics that you referred to, I love that we had the moment between Chapel and Spock because I think this gives legs to the Pring episode when I'm sorry to the Serenity Squall episode where they kiss and at the end they're like, yeah, no, nothing's happening here. But the fact is, I think something is happening here, and I think this has legs, and we're going to see more things happening in subsequent seasons because that was a moment. It was a raw moment where C is the only one who's able to understand what he's going through, and C is the only one that he feels he can express what is going on with him. So, yes, he is engaged to Pring, but there's a lot more going on here, and I'm really glad that even though each episode is sort of focused on something happening within that episode, but you're beginning to see again what I've referred to before, which is world building, and not just with outside characters like Cybok or Captain Angel, but internally as well. And this has definitely got some legs that's going to keep on going. And speaking of stuff that's going, I like the fact that Hemmer's death. Remember, Hemmer said that his reason was to fix things, and in a certain sense, Uhura wasn't quite broken, but she didn't quite understand what she wanted to do. So his death kind of fixes her resolve. And you see, as you aptly pointed out, Josh, that she comes into the bridge at the end, looks at the communication station, and realizes, you know what? I'm not going to rotate out of here. Even Pike at the beginning of the episode said there'll always be a place for Nihera and Uhura here in the bridge. And so I would say she's going to take advantage of that offer, and she's not rotating out. And we'll talk about this in predictions, but I think that's a rather safe prediction. And on a personal note, I also am glad that the captain of the ship that went down, is not. I have her name here, and I'll find it in a moment. But it is not the captain that Pike slept with at the start of the episode, which is Melanie Scrofano, who's a personal favorite of mine. So I would have been bummed if it had been her who went down, but it is not. So all is well. And yeah, who doesn't like a bit of horror intense moments. You were absolutely right about that, Josh.
Yeah, it goes back to my theory I have is that everybody's a horror movie fan. It's just they have to be a fan of a particular type of horror movie. So, and I think if you are a fan of science fiction and a fan of things like Predator and Aliens, this is definitely the episode for you. I can't say as I really felt like there's anything particularly bad about this episode. I was sad by the passing of Hemmer. Uh, he was one of my favorite characters, and when I saw the first pictures of his character on when they were announcing the rest of the cast, I was so excited about having a character, his character, on there because it was going to give us so many opportunities to explore his race and Andoria and everything else. Because for years, from Next Generation on, there was a lot of fans who wanted a character who was Andorian, and I know technically Hemmer was an Andorian, but he was from the same. They were genetic cousins, and they lived on the same planet, so and they had similar cultures. So that would have been nice to have had more of him a little longer. But has with Mbinga's daughter last week. I guess, like you said, you know, I mean, anybody's up for grabs. If a major recurring character or a major, character like him or could die, well, Leon can die, Una can die. I mean, we don't know whatever happened to Una after the later on because she, never showed up in TOS. So, um, it's hard to say, but I mean, I'm supposing, and we'll talk more about this in predictions, but I think it's going to open up for another character. So, so what do we think? What do we want to put in the Gorn? So did you have anything bad to comment on
Oh,
that
yes,
you
I
didn't
did.
like?
Um, uh,
Okay.
and here I'm going to do a complete 180. After talking about how good it was that Hemmer died, I'm going to mention that it was possibly bad that Hemmer died if this leads into the introduction of Montgomery Scott. And this is why I'm going to say this because we already have Uhura there. We know we're getting Kirk next season. That this should be Pike's Enterprise. If we introduce Montgomery Scott, beloved character as he was of TOS, I feel this is turning too soon into Kirk's Enterprise. And I I'm watching Strange New Worlds because I don't want to see the original series. I want to see Captain Pike's Enterprise. So if Hemmer's death, because they're going to need another engineer, chief engineer. So if this leads to an introduction of Montgomery Scott, I think it's going to be a bad thing because it's going to be transitioning too soon to Kirk's Enterprise. Personally, I already feel it's too soon to have Kirk in season two. I was happy with Samuel Kirk, but if we're getting James Kirk in season two, I'm not thrilled about that. And if we start incorporating the original cast into Pike's Enterprise, it's no longer really Pike's Enterprise. So that's one thing. Still sticking with the Hammer. The gestation period that really bothered me because as it's established for an Orion it takes weeks, for a human it takes several days, but for an Andorian it takes just a few hours. No, I thought that, and I'm going to go back to something a friend of the show Michael Pea said, that which is like, because the episode has to happen. And I totally get that, but I would have liked just an additional line to say why it was so accelerated in Hemmer as opposed to the other races. So for me, one plot line that I did not like was like, why was the gestation period so accelerated in Hemmer? And it was Captain Gavin who's the captain of the ship. I just found that in my notes. Lon is a terrible shot. I mean, come on, he's head of security. When the Gorn, who is no longer quite so big, now it's a juvenile Gorn, is in engineering and has just shot Hemmer with the venom slash infectation venom. It is not moving. It's pretty big. The Gorn doesn't know she's there. She has the Gorn dead in her sights, and she misses. Like, no, you're the head of security. Like, I could buy if Nurse Chapel shoots and misses, but you've got the big fancy gun, which must come with some independent targeting system. Like, no, you should have hit that Gorn like right in the middle. You should have bullseyed it. So I thought that was like the Gorn getting away in that instance. I was like, yeah, I'm not a fan of that. And sticking with on, did she know that Hemmer was infected? So that's the big question for me because her experience in the planet, she pretty much deduced that at the end, when the cargo bay and they both come out of the cargo holes, and Hemmer is trembling that he's been infected. But did she know as soon as Hemmer said that he had been hit by the venom that he had been infected? So that's a big question mark. How much did Laan really know? I mean, she knew where to find Oriana when she was hiding because she was hiding in the coldest section of the ship, and it's established. And by the way, just to fortify what I've said before, that Andoria would be an excellent prison planet for the Gorn. That they do not like cold, so that's why she was hiding there. So she has an extensive knowledge of the Gorn. So how much did she know about Hemmer? So that's a question mark for me. So just a few bads, and I do have some stuff for the Gorn too. But yeah, those would be my bads with the mainly around Hemmer, which is if this introduces Montgomery Scott, I don't think that's a good thing. And also the gestation period was just a little too quick.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, that was a bit odd. I forgot about that, and I couldn't tell you why that is. So I'm not even going to try to hazard a guess. But I do think that was. I think they felt like, oh, we need to have a big ending. We're losing Bruce after this episode, so let's give him a heroic death here and do this. But yeah, okay, Leon. I'm starting to wonder. Okay, did you go to the stormtrooper school of shooting? I mean, what the heck, I mean, Worf could have hit that thing, Just a quick defense to a brother Klingon here. Worf could have definitely hit that thing. So I don't know. I think you're
Wesley
right.
Crusher could have hit that thing.
Yeah, I mean, okay, would it not have made more sense in that scene to have had like say Uhura, who had been with him most of that time? Okay, she could be forgiven. Like, okay, she's not a crack shot like Leon's supposed to be. That she's a cadet. She doesn't have nearly the years of experience with a phaser rifle that Leon is supposed to have. So yeah, that should have been written differently. I think that was an oversight by the writers.
Do you see this pen? Laan should be deadly even with this pen.
Yes, she should be. I mean, I know Worf could be. Odo could be actually. So don't even get me started about Tuvok, but as far as security chiefs go. So although I in defense of her knowledge of Gorn, I mean, she clearly knows the basics of Gorn language. I'm a little bit surprised though she did not recognize that this saliva thing was the Gorn mating procedure. And also, I mean, the fact that it's Hemmer was infected by a creature that was only a few hours old, and suddenly it needed to reproduce. So, or it could reproduce. So, I mean, I think that's another telling thing. But yeah, you're right. I mean, why did why did it take a few days with a human or an Orion, but only a few hours with Hemmer? That's weird.
Exactly right. And also at that point there was 3 left. So clearly when the Gorn crosses through an engineering, he's killed one of the other Gorn. But you know what? If we still have 3 left, Laan could have nailed that one Gorn, and we still have 2 left, and the rest of the episode goes as planned. So I was like, it was more out of character to have Laan miss.
Yes. I mean, let's say we're going to say something like Laan was panicked or something by the side of the Gorn, but I that's way too complicated. I think they should have just rewritten it and said, "Oh, we're gonna have Uhura do that instead," because no one's going to buy the idea that Leon, the chief of security, is just going to miss an easy shot like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
complete agreement.
yeah. So I think that was a slip up there on their part. Okay, so you ready to move on to the Gorn?
Indeed, I am.
Okay, go for it.
Oh, thank you.
Take the lead.
Thank you, sir. So, the character of Oriana, excuse me, is played by Emma Ho. And if she looks a little familiar, that is because her brother was the first, Ian Ho was the first servant in the episode Lift Us from Suffering. So they are a power brother and sister who, and this is a shout out to friend of the show, Michael Pea. They are the brother and sister from the final season of The Expanse, of the colony that was on the Ring World. So
Ooh, interesting.
yeah, so they are the next upcoming Jake and Maggie Gyllenhaal of acting. So I just thought it was awesome that we had them in the brother in one episode, and then we have the sister in another episode, and she did both of them in each of their respective episodes did a really good job. At least I thought. As and the other thing about the Gorn is so no emergency force field for the companion that is like about to have the Gorn bust out of his body. There's a slight risk here, and Chapel was able to activate an emergency force field for herself. I mean, the minute that you have this happening with him, shouldn't an emergency force field being erected around his biobed? That's a question that I have.
Yeah. Um, I think like again, you do have the faux pas in the writing, but yeah, I think though that was really interesting what you just told me about the brother and sister. Hopefully the brother doesn't grow up to become anywhere as weird as Jake Gyllenhaal does. Uh,
That's not weird.
I don't know. I'd still try to figure out what the deal was with that whole scarf thing, but I don't know. I think it was really great. I think we could talk more about this in the predictions part, but I think that it was very telling, as we said, about Christine hugging Spock and telling him that he was human, and how does Spock react to that? Because he's always seen himself as Vulcan, um, even though yes, he has a human mom and he has human friends, but he's always prided himself on being Vulcan first. Um, and how does that affect him? And what does that mean? Uh, is he just not able to control his emotions as well because he's half human, or is it just because he's being put in very stressful situations that even Serac could not have predicted? I'm pretty sure that when Serac wrote his philosophies out, he never imagined the possibility of his body being used by a reptilian alien species as a breeding ground.
Probably not.
No, which goes to a lot of other things we could talk about, but we're not going to go into today. Um,
So,
but
Josh, I have one last thing for a Gorn segment on my side, which is, did you catch the space station they were going to?
K7, yes, yes, home of the Quadrotriticale. And those annoying parasites.
But more importantly, and I want to get into this in our next segment of predictions, but it K7 is supposedly very close to the Klingon border.
It is, yes.
And this planet, Valero Beta 5, supposedly is en route to K7, so that means it's also near the Klingon border.
Hischlach. Klingon put. So, yeah, I might get my wish after all.
Season 2, I think, yeah.
Yeah, pretty close. So, but before we get into predictions, I meant to do this at the top of the show, but we have to go back to last week's episode, The Elysium Kingdom, because of something that was brought to my attention this week that we did not notice. If you go back and you look at the book, The Elysium Kingdom, that Dr. Mbenga is holding, and you look at who the author is of this book, the author is Benny Russell. Now, for those of you who don't remember who Benny Russell was or don't know who I'm talking about, Benny Russell was the name of a certain science fiction writer from the late 1950s who, among many things he wrote a series of unpublished stories about a starbase on the far side of the galaxy commanded by a black captain, and that starbase was named Deep Space Nine. I am, of course, referring to Captain Sisko's other self, the great Benny Russell from the episode Far Beyond the Stars. A really powerful and timely Star Trek episode that shows the life of a black science fiction writer dreaming of better days for the African American community. And I just want to throw that out there, and that was a real nice callback to DS9 that they had there. So if anybody here wants to go back and rewatch Elysium Kingdom, just kind of think about that somehow Benny got that book out there. So,
and okay. I totally missed this. At the end of the show, I'm tendering my resignation.
Please don't. Please don't.
I am no longer worthy. I'm going to go get my bat left and just
do ritual.
Yeah. I'm going to try it. At least this way I can regain some semblance of honor.
How about I just forgive you for missing it? Because I missed it too until somebody pointed it out to me. So, I mean, yeah. Either way, it was a great episode. And also, people should definitely check out that episode of Deep Space Nine, Far Beyond the Stars. It's one of my top 3 all-time favorite Star Trek episodes. It really pulls at the heartstrings. And I should definitely give that a shout out. Okay, so predictions. Chris, what do you got for us?
Well, my predictions are that, and this is slightly looking at season 2 now, since we've only got 1 episode left, and I'm deeply worried about this 1 episode again has such emotional gravitas that I'm almost scared to watch what's going to be the season finale. I have to watch it like this. That I think we're going to get a Klingon Gorn war, because given the location of these planets to Klingon space, and I think we will see Klingons in season 2, and you sort of need a reason to have Klingons. Well, the reasons could be that the Federation has had encounters with the Gorn that they haven't, but I think we're going to start to see some skirmishes of Klingons and Gorn, and maybe there's a reason why Uapente was built on a cold, frigid planet.
Yes, I've never considered that, but yeah, that is a possibility. In the novelizations, it is known that there are a lot of hostilities between the Klingons and the Gorn. So that could be something that the writers have decided to incorporate here. I would love that, have these, skirmishes. I would love to see a battle where maybe you could have one of Worf's ancestors. So this is a great opportunity if they could get him for this, is getting Michael Dorn to come in as because we do know that Worf's grandfather was Kirk and McCoy's lawyer in Star Trek VI. So, who's to say that maybe he didn't have another Klingon ancestor who fought in the Klingon-Gorn war? In which case that could be a really interesting thing to have Michael appear as a recurring guest star on Strange New Worlds as, he battles the Gorn. I'm sure Michael would, I'm sure that Michael's, as we said on Picard, Michael's big complaint hasn't been, is that if he's going to, wear a Klingon headpiece and do all that again, he wants to have things to do. And this would definitely give him something to do, something more than just, showing up on a view screen and saying, "Oh, hi, Captain Pike. Hi, Mr. Spock. How y'all doing today?" That would be something he would probably get into. So yeah, that could be something. Also, of course, We Klingons have the running joke that Gorn, that we like the Gorn. They make excellent boots. Uh, yeah. So actually, I'm holding out for why am I Christine Chong? I think it is Leon's real
Lon.
name. Lance. I'm sorry. I just keep wanting to say that, but uh, Lance. The actress who plays her, I kind of want to run that joke by her at a con. So, uh,
The other thing I'll toss in about predictions is something is definitely not right with Mabenga. And I think, much like Spock's emotions and just developing a relationship with Nurse Chapel, I think we're going to see more of like Dr. Mabenga's heading toward a bad place. He's lost his wife. Now he's lost his daughter. I think that, the future ahead, and maybe we'll see a little bit of this in the season finale, but I definitely think heading into season 2 that Mabenga's going to a not pretty place.
yeah. Well, we don't know why he left the Enterprise for a while. Because obviously he left and he came back for a while during Kirk's time as captain, and served under McCoy. So we know something is going to happen there. We just don't know what. Um, Obviously, he's trying to put a brave front, but yeah, I agree. Something's going on there. So, there are other things I could speculate about, but as you asked, I will not give any spoilers. But I think that I think we're going to have a heck of an ending here, going into the final episode of the season.
Thank you for no spoilers. And it's partly because I was on the gram the other day, and I saw a posting pictures of Hammer in the jacket, and I gotta say I'm in love with that jacket. I really need that jacket. And I posted on there that I really like the jacket, and of course when I posted, I saw the posts of others, and this was like at 10 a.m. on Thursday, and sure enough, someone spoiled it for me, and I was just like, oh, damn it. Like henceforth on on the gram I follow I follow Strange New World, so I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna have to stop like even looking at the gram. And I know should know better, okay? But like for those people out there who put out spoilers, like no, spoilers, bad thing, bad.
Yeah.
So thank you. You know, as we look at things for the future, one thing I would like is I really like Cameron's character because he was a non-human engineer. And so far in the Trick series, I mean, yeah, a little bit Balana, but she's still half human. All the engineers have been human, and you know, I liked Hammer's character precisely because he was not human, and so in my prediction for the future, I'm going to say they're going to follow this route, and provided again we don't have Montgomery Scott, that we will have a non-human. What race will it be? I don't know. But I'm hoping, and that's my bold prediction, that may not come to place because having an alien means more time in makeup and costume. It's more difficulty for the actor or actress portraying said character. But I'm holding out hope for the Hammer's replacement will be a non-human.
Yeah, I would like that, like maybe a Tellarite. Having because we had that Tellarite cadet on Discovery last season, and he was pretty cool, but we've never had really, I think, that many definitive Tellarites.
I'm still holding out for a badass Gazalian.
Might get your wish, I don't know, bud. We can hope.
Hey, I got my Gorn this season. Okay, I'm a huge Gorn guy, so
Yeah.
I got my Gorn. So if that happened, the sky's the limit.
Yeah. So I think you're right, and I think we should. I don't know. We can hope. I'm sure they'll come. It's like I agree with you. Let's not jump into Scotty just yet. Okay. Let's. Yeah. I think some people are expecting that. because there was all this big news that, oh, they've cast a guy to come in as a young Lieutenant Kirk. I mean, I think there's some things about Kirk's history in the Prime universe that have not been explored. Because I mean, obviously the Captain Kirk we know from the Kelvin timeline. Um, of course, he has a different path. I mean, the original Captain Kirk we know didn't crash a classic Corvette off of a canyon to spite his uncle, um, and things like that. We know that and obviously there are definitely divergence, but I think one thing I would like to see if Kirk is aboard, let's have them explore the mist monster thing, the thing that was draining the blood that had killed Captain Kirk's first commanding officer when he was aboard the Republic. And also, I can't help but wonder. And I've said this for a while. I know that there was a book about this, but I keep wishing that somebody would talk about um not Koloff, Koloff, the the governor of the Federation colony that went badly, and he started killing people in order to save the rest of the colony. Because clearly, because Kirk was there when he was a boy, and clearly that had to have had an effect on him. Both instances. I mean, that's something I wouldn't mind seeing if they are bringing Kirk aboard, but not. I still want to see it be more about Pike and Una and everybody else that
Yeah,
isn't named Kirk. You know.
exactly. And you know what? At the risk of some hate mail, but I'm okay if we just don't go back to the Kelvin timeline. I mean,
Mm.
JJ, you tried it, but it's in retrospect, it's not working for me. Much like the Star Wars sequels under JJ just aren't holding up well. It's just not holding up well. I'm okay. Nice, we tried it. Let's move on.
I'm gonna give one defense
Okay.
of the Kelvin timeline, and that is Star Trek Beyond, the last movie they did. I know they're working on another one where they're bringing back Chris Hemsworth as George Kirk, Kirk's father. Um, that last movie felt more like a Star Trek movie, and I think the only reason that didn't do well was because Into Darkness was just a movie that was all over the place. It didn't make any sense. And even though you had great actors in the form of Benedict Cumberbatch, Zoe Saldana, um, Zach Quinto, and Chris Pine, and the rest of the cast of that movie, they could not keep it. It just blew apart. And I do think part of that is just because J.J. Abrams is incredibly overrated. I think he has good beginnings, but he has no follow through on anything he does. And I think that sometimes, and I'm gonna get off this rant in just a second, bud, but I'm just gonna say this: Chris Hemsworth, I mean not Chris Hemsworth, J.J. Abrams is a guy who's into fan service. That's all he does. That's what he's good at, is fan service of existing franchises. Okay, and beyond that, he's got no game. He is not the next Steven Spielberg. He is not the next George Lucas. He's just a guy who created a couple of TV shows that people liked, and that was it. And somehow he just attaches his name to all these other projects, and they get some money. People think he's involved, but I'll be honest, I think the mystique of J.J. Abrams is pretty much fading away. So I'm going to climb off my soapbox now. I'm sorry about that outburst, everybody. I
I was just going to
apologize.
say, if you need lens flare, you call JJ. Anything
Yes.
else? Look who else is on your Rolodex.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, that's why I go around telling everybody that uh, John Favreau, Dave Filoni, and Deborah Cho are my masters now. So
They are indeed the new Holy Trinity.
yes, they are, at least as far as the other franchise we really like. But I think Kurtzman is doing a great job overall. I think that you know, I still think that I think Stranger Worlds has been awesome as we go into the final episode, and I'm excited about the returns of shows like Lower Decks and Prodigy, and hopefully that we're going to get some good stuff from Picard and Discovery too when they come back. But
Yeah, I'm thinking 23 will probably be Picard, then Strange New Worlds, and then Discovery. I think that's how it's going to be in 23.
yeah, um, yeah, and I think but I do think well, as far as I know, Prodigy and Lower Decks are coming back. But I do think they will by 2024 they will have a Section 31 show, and it's going to be helmed by Michelle Yeoh. That she will come back as Giorgio. Um, and
I mean, I like Michelle Yeoh, but I also want to avoid oversaturation of Trek shows. So, when I hear another Trek show, I just have a little bit of trepidation. I don't want to oversaturate the market, so we'll
yeah,
see.
I don't know. I mean, I think they said though that with Section 31 they wanted to wrap up at least one of the shows, and obviously we know next year is going to be the last episode for Picard, so I think that will end, and then that will create a space for her show, and I'm just going to be excited about that. But
If you
anyway,
had if you had to choose Deep Space Nine, The Next Generation, or Section 31, which would you go for?
that's not fair.
I
But this the thing is it's not the 90s anymore. We don't have a traditional television scheduling anymore. We just kind of leapfrog, because everything's like, okay, you have 10 episodes of Discovery, 10 episodes of Picard, 10 episodes of Strange New Worlds, 10 episodes of uh, um, Lower Decks, 10 episodes of Prodigy, and that fills out your whole year of Star Trek. So they're not on top of each other, but at the same time, Paramount Plus is keeping fans, from like, okay, we're just going to keep this subscription for 2 months so I can watch this show. Now they're kind of like, well, okay, I'm going to try this Star Trek show just to see if I like it. And then, I think that's holding a lot of fans. And so yeah. So anyway, we are coming up to the end of our weekly show, as always. So, Chris, you want to let the folks know where to find you?
Thank you, Josh. Yes, for anyone who is on the gram, you can follow me at Fairday Cosplay. If you are a cosplayer from the DC area, look up my account. It's very likely that you might be there. Please feel free to tag yourself. And a shout out for our beloved friends at Shore Leave. In less than 2 weeks
Yes.
actually, about 12 days on the Hunt Valley Shore Leave, which is a fan based convention. It's absolutely fantastic. Huge shout out to the people there who organize it. It's a labor of love, and it shows. If anyone is in Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, you should come down to the show. It's the first time it's back in, I guess, 3 years now.
2 years.
2 years? Okay.
Yeah, because no, it is 3 years. Because we had lockdown in March of 2020, but this will be the first. Yeah, because the last time we were there was Farpoint, which is in the same hotel, and we didn't get Shore Leave. So yeah, you're right. It is 3 years. So
Wow.
we've been waiting, and
Time flies too fast.
too fast. Well, and of course, you can find me on my Facebook page, Josh Pritchett Jr. My book, Bigfoot and Other Tales of the Supernatural, is still on sale at Amazon and Kindle. And I will be having a table at Shore Leave that whole weekend. You can come by, buy books, take pictures with me. I will be in Klingon garb, and I will be debuting a brand new Klingon outfit that I have not posted pictures for yet. I will not be posting pictures until that weekend, but
no spoilers.
No spoilers. Yes. So, come by and check me out. And also, if you want to buy them from me directly at the convention, not only will I autograph it, you will also get a free poster, and you will also get a discount on the cover price. And also, my friend Kay Wern, who designed the cover and poster, will be there, and they'll be happy to autograph it as well. So,
as they say in German, das ist günstig.
Hislach, Machka. So, and I think that's where we're going to wrap it up. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am Josh Pritchett.
I'm Chris Pabon.
Live long and prosper.
Peace and love.
Kapla. Kapla. Sorry.